Hi, welcome to my video on changing general form of a circle to standard form. Let's recall a topic that we did in earlier videos when we did factoring, and that's completing the square. So if you have a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, that equals, when you factor it, into a plus b squared. In other words, if we took the binomial a plus b and squared it, this would be your pattern. So to complete the square, we would make it a perfect square trinomial. So we would have to take half the middle term and square it. So if we take the 6, which is the b, and take a half of it and square it, we would get 3 squared, which is 9. So to make it a perfect square trinomial, we would add 9. And that's factorable, and I'll show you. X squared is x and x. The factors of 9 to give you 6 are 3 and 3. Because the product is positive, the sum is positive, so we have 2 positives. So that ends up to be x plus 3 squared. So to complete the square, we need to put a number on the end that will make it a perfect square trinomial whose factoring is a binomial squared. And here we have a negative 8 divided by 2, and we squared. So negative 4 squared is a plus 16. And again, if you factor this trinomial, you get x and x. Factors of 16 to give you 8 are 4 and 4. Product is positive 16, sum is negative 8, so it has to be 2 negatives. So that's an x minus 4 all squared. So change the general form to standard form of a circle. The general form is ax squared plus ay squared plus cx plus dy plus c. Notice in the previous video I had an a and a b, but now I made the two of them a's because in order to be a circle, these two coefficients, we call the numerical coefficients, have to be the same. So if they are the same, we divide all the terms by a, we group the x's and the y's, and we move the constant term e to the left side. Complete the square on the x's and the y's and balance the equation. We factor x as x minus h all squared. We factor the y's as y minus k all squared, and we simplify the right side. So let's do some examples following these steps. Notice the a and b are 1, so step 1 is done. We group the x's, so we go x squared minus 4x, and we go y squared plus 10y, and we move the constant to the right side, and I said move the constant to the left side. It's already on the left side, so that's right. That should be the right side. Constant is already on the left, we should move it to the right. Little error there. Done. Now we're going to complete the square on the x's. So a half of negative 4 is negative 2 squared. It'll give me a 4. And a half of 10 squared, half of 10 is 5, 5 squared is 25. So we balance, so we add 4 here to complete the square, we add 4 to the right side. We add 25 to complete the square, we add it to the right side. So that makes it an x minus 2 when we factor it, and this makes it a y plus 5. So notice we have a plus on the end, so this is factorable. A half, whatever half of this right here is, if you complete the square, you only have to take a half of this coefficient and put it here and square it. Half of plus 10 is plus 5, put it here and square it. And that gives us 25, and 11 is 36. So let's go again. Divide each of the terms by a. So a is 7 here, so we're dividing all the terms by 7. So 7 divided by 7 is 1. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 7 divided by 14 divided by 7 is 2. 42 divided by 7 is 6. And 42 divided by 7 is 6. So what we have here, we group the x's so that we group the x's and move the constant to the right side. So we group the x's, we group the y's. Notice I left a space because I'm going to complete the square on the x's here. Group the y's and move the 6 over to make it negative. Now we take a half off the 2, which is 1, and we square it. We take a half of 6, which is negative 3, and we square it. So to balance it out, we add the 1 and the 9 to both sides. So when you complete the square, whatever you add to each side has to be on the right side also. So the factorization of this perfect square trinomial is x. Half of the plus 2 is a plus 1 squared. And a half of the negative 6 is a negative 3, and we square it. So that gives us 6 and 10 adds up to be 4. So hopefully you can see the pattern that we're doing to get the standard form. And the standard form is the center radius form. So let's pause the video on each of these if you wish and work each of these out. Here we go. So A is already A. The A's are already 1, so we're just going to group the X's. And we're going to group the Y's. And we're going to move the 25 over and make it negative. Now we take a half of 10 and square it. So half of 10 is 5. 5 squared is 25. Half of negative 6 is negative 3 squared is 9. So we add 25 to each side and 9 to each side to balance it. And the factorization is x squared is an x. A half of plus 10 is a plus 5. And we have it squared. And the y's, y squared is y. Half of negative 6 is negative 3, and we squared. 25 and 25, negative 25 and 25 cancels out, so we get a 9. So the standard form is bracket x plus 5 squared, and a bracket of y minus 3 squared equals 9. Notice the center is negative 5, and 3 is the opposite of these, and the radius is the square root of 9, 3. And the radius has to be always positive. And again, we have another one, and we have the coefficients here 1, so that's, we group the x's, and we group the y's, and we move the constant to the right side to make it positive. Notice we take a half of negative 4 and square it, we get a plus 16, so we balance it. Notice this time we don't have a y, so we have a y to the 0. So because there's no y term, we got 0y. A half of 0 is 0, 0 squared is 0. So I won't say it's a waste of time to put these two in here. So we just factor x. Half of negative 8 is negative 4 squared. We leave the y like that, and we get 17. And just to mention, right here, y squared is the same as y minus 0 squared. So if you want to put that in here, you can, but we know that the y coordinate is 0 because there's no y term. Number 3, we see negative 3 and negative 3. Divide everything by negative 3. We get x squared plus y squared minus 4x plus 6y plus 2 equals 0. Divide by negative 3. Negative 3 being divided. Group the x's. Group the y's. Move the constant to the right side. Make it a minus. Half of negative 4 is negative 2 squared is a plus 4. Half of plus 6 is plus 3 squared is 9. So we add the 4 and the 9 to each side to balance it. So this is a perfect square trinomial factor. X squared is an x, and half of negative 4 is negative 2 all squared. And y, half of plus 6 is a plus 3. We square it, and that gives us 11. And again, the center of this circle is a 2 and negative 3, and the radius is the root of 6. And up here the center is plus 4 and 0, and the radius is the root of 17. Now, down here we have fractions. Anytime I see fractions, but the A is a half, B is a half, they're the same, so I can divide by half, or I can multiply by 2. If LCD is 2, so if I multiply by 2, half times 2 is 1, half times 2 is 1, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 5 is 10, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 4 is 8. And now we group the x's, we group the y's, and the 8 is already over there, so we move the 2 over to make it a minus. So a half of half of 6 is plus 3, so we square, we get a 9. Half of 10 is 5, we square it, we get 25. So we add the 9 and the 25 onto each side. And this is factorable as a binomial squared, so it's an x. Half of plus 6 is a plus 3. So x plus 3 times x plus 3 will give you this perfect square trinomial, which is x plus 3 squared. And if you factor this, you'll get a y plus 5. Half of plus 10 is plus 5. So this is a y plus 5 times y plus 5 when we factor it, which ends up to be y plus 5 squared. And that's a 6, 15, that makes it a 40. So again, the center of this one is -3, -5, and the radius is the square root of 40. And just to work that out, it didn't have to. Square root of 40 is the square root of 4 times 10. So the radius would have been 2 root 10 as a radical in simplest form. But that's all we had to do is write it in standard form. And we have another one to do, the last one. Change the standard form and find the center and the radius of the circle. It's already the coefficients of the x squared and y. Notice we got an x squared and a y squared, and these are the same, making the circle with a plus sign. This has to be a plus sign between the x squared and the y squared. You have to have an x squared and a y squared with a plus sign to make it a circle. And these have to be the same, and you see that coming up in later videos on this topic where these are going to be different. So we group the x's, we group the y's, and we move the constant -1 to the right side and make it 1. Now we have a 3, and we're going to divide it by 2, and we're going to square it. That gives us 9 over 4. And right here we have a -5. We're going to divide it by 2 and square it. That gives us 25 over 4. To balance it, we add 9 over 4 and 25 over 4 to each side. Now, this is factorable and rather than write that down, let's go with the square root of x squared is x. A half of plus 3 is plus 3 over 2. And we have the y's. Square root of y squared is y. Half of -5 is a -5 over 2. Notice what you put here is what we have inside of here. So 3 over 2 squared, so that's a plus 3 over 2. This is a -5 over 2 before we square it, so that's a -5 over 2. Now we add these up, and we get 1 is 4 over 4, 9 over 4, plus 25 over 4. So that gives us x plus 3 over 2, all squared. Y minus 5 over 2, all squared. Common denominator is 4. And we add 25 and 13 is 38. Just to make sure. 25 add on 13. Right. 38 over 4. So the radius is, so the center is -3 over 2, positive 5 over 2 for the y. And just to work out this, so that could become, if you want, because they're even, we'll reduce it. And this gives us half of 4 is 2, half of 38 is 19. So the radius is the square root of 19 over 2. So if we want the radius, but remember the answer I wanted here was just, oh, we want the center. I do want the radius. So the center is negative 3 over 2, and the y is positive 5 over 2, and the radius is the square root. So r squared is equal to 19 over 2. So r is the square root of 19 over 2. So that's the square root of 19 divided by the square root of 2. We write the fraction as a radical over radical. We rationalize the denominator. So we get the square root of 38 all over 2. So the radius is the square root of 38 divided by 2. So I found it. Again, I completed the squares, worked them out, and I made this one, probably the last one on this video, I made a little bit of extra work to do with the fractions. And to rationalize, I wanted this to be a little bit more work rather than just be, I didn't want this number to be a 36 or a 4 or a 9 because they're easy to do. I just wanted a fraction to do more work to rationalize. So that's changing a general form to a standard form to get the center radius. And if you like my video, click on the like button, click on the subscribe button. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my video, and the content. That's the content on my channel YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Hope the video was of some help to you. Bye-bye.